Sure enough, it's time to slide on over to a new episode of Chit Chat with Manoj. The host, Mr. Manoj Singh, is the CEO of Caesar Productions. Before I forget, Caesar Productions will be hosting their annual DC South Asian Film Festival on September 25th, 26th, and 27th this year. It's truly an enjoyable event. Please be sure to be a part and parcel of the show this year. Not only do they feature local and regional films, but they also screen international films and host Bollywood stars. So much for the DC Festival. But back to this week's Chit Chat. You are all well aware that President Obama recently passed the Marriage Equality Act. Quite a number of South Asians are a part of the Lgbtq community. Speaking of this issue, today Mr. Singh has alongside him two interesting guests from that community. Their names are Vega Subramaniam and Mala Nagarajan. The topic of discussion, South Asian LGBTQ community member challenges. I paid close attention to this conversation and I found it rather interesting. I particularly liked Mr. Singh's ending quotation. Let me share that with you now.
Welcome to Chit Chat. I am Manoj Singh. Hello, Adab, Namaste. Today we are going to talk about LGBTQ, the challenges for South Asian community. It stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer. And we all know about recently, a few weeks back, there was a major Supreme Court decision on same-sex marriage. And for joining me for this discussion today are, on my left, Mala Nagarajan. Welcome on my show. On my right, Vega Subramaniam. Really appreciate your time for coming here and on my show. So let's start. First, a very I don't know, a personal question, but tell us just about yourself, background, how did you meet, and when did you get married?
Sure, yeah. Thank you. First, I'd like to thank you, Manoj, for inviting us to Chit Chat. I'd also like to thank Kingston Kodan, the current president of Kush DC, for offering us this opportunity. It's a watershed moment, the Supreme Court decision, so we're very honored to be here and share our stories. So in terms of ourselves, we are nonprofit consultants. We own a company very originally titled Vega Mala Consulting. We offer organizational development, consulting, coaching, trainings, and workshops. In terms of my background, I was born in then Madras, now Chennai, India. My family immigrated to the United States in the late 1960s when I was 3. Grew up in Wisconsin, made our way to the East Coast. Now my parents are retired and live in the suburbs of Philadelphia.
In terms of my background, my parents immigrated here to the DC area in 1966. I was born and raised here. And I left for Seattle, Washington in 1989 to join a university there and study Tamil. Vega and I met in Bellingham, Washington in 1996, and she was teaching sociology at Western Washington. I was managing a consumer resource center for the Washington State Attorney General's office. And we were friends for quite a while. We started an organization called Tricone Northwest, which is similar to Kush DC here locally, in that it's an organization for queer South Asians. And then at some point we decided that we wanted to share our lives together. And in 2002 we got married in a Hindu ceremony with a Hindu priest. And it was an amazing experience for us. And in 2012, when Washington State and Maryland passed the same-sex marriage, we were able to get married legally or have our marriage recognized legally.
Happy for both of you.
Thank you.
So I know in the corporations, the benefits, same-sex partner benefits were there for a while now. And then was the DOMA, the big thing. And now the Supreme Court decision, we all know that day that how happy so many people were. The White House was all rainbow colored and the Facebook was all, full of rainbow colors. It was, I think it's a major historic decision. And so what are your thoughts and where are we going from here? What are the changes are you expecting?
Good question. So our thoughts are we're exhilarated. If you had asked me in 2002 when we got married and our priest had to apologize to us because he wasn't allowed to issue us a marriage license. And in 2004, when we joined a lawsuit in the state of Washington to challenge DOMA, Defense of Marriage Act then, if we would see marriage equality for same-sex couples in my lifetime, I would have said absolutely not. Sometime, surely, but not in my lifetime. So imagine how it felt for us when just a month ago, marriage equality became the law of the land. It was breathtaking how quickly that change happened. In terms of what's ahead of us, well, right now we're experiencing some backlash. You know, we're going to have to face that for a while, kind of myths and trumped up charges and accusations, whether they're around concerns about religious liberty or protecting children. The worst of that, I suspect, will subside within the next few years because same-sex marriages are just going to be the new normal. We're going to see greater parental acceptance, I think, even in our South Asian communities. At the point where the government, President Obama, all of our social institutions are essentially embracing same-sex couples and treating our marriages as exactly the same as heterosexual marriages, gone are the arguments that this is illegal, this is not recognized, this is not right, the U.S. society doesn't even accept it. It's all gone. So I think we're going to see more of us coming out and being out, and I think we're going to see more acceptance within families. And what that's going to lead to is children who are LGBTQ and South Asian hopefully having healthier childhoods, more healthy than Mala and I had, for example. And I also believe that we're going to see a few brave vanguard religious leaders who have hearts large and generous enough to take on the orthodoxy to start offering wedding ceremonies in our temples, gurdwaras, mosques, and churches.
And it's also, I think, for the LGBTQ community, I think it's a relief now that it's all done. A lot of us don't see marriage equality as the top priority. Some of us want to challenge police profiling and deportation and bad immigration policies. So now we're hoping that there will be resources and community efforts towards those efforts.
Yeah, I'm already seeing some of the changes in the Indian newspapers, India Abroad. There have been now several people who have come out and are talking about the relationship. And in fact, I was reading in India, in southern India, there's a mom who gave an ad for her own son.
Yes.
Which was, I like that. And there's now there's also encouragement in India because, you know, over there they still have it as illegal and people are fighting for it. So what are some of the challenges for you guys in the South Asian community in our area, and how can the community help?
One of the hardest challenges for queer South Asians is the loss and isolation of family and community. For many of us, the community is alienating and hostile, and we all expect family and community to be the space that we feel safe in. There are many of us that have multiple marginalized identities, and when we don't feel safe in our communities, we have no support systems. So it's going to be, it's a challenge. It's many of us, including myself, have felt suicidal in our lives, and we struggle every day to be our full selves.
I wish things improve. I mean, what can I say?
Yeah. Well, one question that you asked was, how can the community help? We have a large community here in the DC metro area. There's about 150,000 South Asians. And statistically, if you think that about 10% of a community is LGBTQ, that means that there's 15,000 of us who are LGBTQ South Asians in this area. And a lot of us are closeted. A lot of us are in denial. A lot of us are alienated, as Mala was saying, estranged from our families, disowned, unsure whether we belong. For those folks, what the community can do to help. Well, first I'd like to acknowledge that there are more and more South Asian folks, leaders like yourself, parents, family members, religious community members, who are actually stepping out and being very courageous and standing up for us and supporting us and standing by our side. So first I'd like to acknowledge that. On a regular basis in our daily lives, one of the most powerful things that I think our community members and family members can do is just say the words out loud. You'd be surprised how powerful it is, even for Mala and me, who are very out and very visible. When we hear a community member in a community space say gay, lesbian, transgender, and that already indicates, in a positive way, that already indicates we can relax a little bit. We can be accepted here a little bit. If something comes on television and you're with friends at a potluck or something, mention it, note it, and say, because it's happening all over TV these days, and say, oh, did you hear about the new Supreme Court decision? What do people think? Have the conversation. Those kinds of everyday things indicate to us that it might be okay for us to approach you to come out. Indicate to us that there might be a community member, a family member that we can feel safe with. That's a big deal. I would say another big deal is religious institutions. Many of us struggle very hard if we're active people of faith. If you're a person of faith and you belong to a temple, mosque, gurdwara, church, we could use your support in opening those doors, in helping us get accepted, in helping reduce the hostility that we face when we try to go there. That would be a huge support.
Yeah, totally agree. This is my personal request that think about the others, the acceptance which Mala and Vega are talking about is their life. They have to be happy. And who are you and me to judge anybody on whom they love or what the gender is? We all have to live together. We all have to love to each other. I mean, and the reason the South Asian community in general is more conservative, and it is harder for them to accept, and it will take time. Everything takes time, and there are a lot of us who are open-minded, liberal, who do accept this and knew it from before. Now, little bit personal question. So, how did you tell your parents, and what was the process, and what you went through in their acceptance? And I know you got married, and there is a structure around you who loves you and who accepts you. So, can you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, so I'm going to out my parents a little bit. They've been involved in the Sri Shiva Vishnu Temple since its founding, and when I came out to them in 1993, they were devastated, and they were scared to lose the community that they had so much invested in. And it took us a long time. My mother took a more bhakti kind of route where while she didn't understand what was going on, she wanted the best for us. And then my dad, his road was long, and the week before he died, he finally asked Vega and me to have a picture with him.
So Vega, this might be a little personal question, but I also wanted to talk to the audience and tell them what's the process you went through when you first revealed your interest to your parents, and what happened and how did they accept you?
So, like in Mala's case, it was also extraordinarily painful for me. I came out to my parents, I think, in 1997. And as an aside, the only reason I had the strength to do so was because I had met Mala at that point and saw that she had already come out and was still surviving, was still alive, because quite honestly, I saw nothing but annihilation on the other side of saying to them, I'm gay. So I did it. It was hard. It was hard for many years. And what I did was never stop talking. Regardless of the tears, the grief, the lots and lots of grief, the yelling, the anger, regardless of all of that, I just kept talking, just kept visiting, just kept keeping the doors open. And when we visited, I was also very clear that Mala is my wife and that we come as a couple, just like any other married couple would visit their family members. And so if they wanted me, they needed to have Mala as well. To their credit, never has any family member ever closed their doors to Mala and me.
Again, very happy for you. Now tell us about some of the South Asian queer organizations and how have they helped you, and what are some of the programs they have?
Sure. So probably the one most relevant to the DC metro area is Kush DC. Kush DC has been around for 21 years, and they offer a number of services for LGBTQ South Asians. As Mala and I have already talked about, one of the biggest challenges that we face is alienation, isolation, being estranged from our family members and our community, which are so core to our identities as South Asians. So what Kush DC offers is support for those 15,000 or so queer South Asians in the DC metro area, a place to find chosen family, to find acceptance, to find community. So they do social gatherings such as potlucks. That's the place where people often find Kush DC. They do a lot more. They offer trainings, they offer presentations, they offer advocacy on our community's behalf. In fact, they're part of the DC Mayor's Office LGBT Council. So they do a variety of activities. They're quite visible. Right now, probably the thing that is worth announcing is that as of last week, they've started again a support group for LGBTQ South Asians. It meets every third Saturday, once a month, 1:30 to 3:30 at the DC LGBT Center. You can find out more at their website.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You want to add?
I think it's a safe haven for many queer South Asians. Many of us in our community have either lost family from domestic violence issues, child abuse. There's lots of different traumas that our people in our organizations have suffered. And so having a space where they can be their full selves is really important. And organizations like Kush DC are just tremendously useful for everyone.
Thank you. So we are towards the end of the show. I would like you, both of you, to look at the lens and tell the community what you want to say from your heart. And please go ahead.
For me, if you feel alone or isolated or scared, I really urge you to not take your life or do anything drastic. Please reach out to our community. We have many people who want to support you and lift you up and welcome your whole self.
And as much as a lot of us have faced trauma, it's in these moments where something as momentous as the Supreme Court of the United States passing marriage equality, that is validation and affirmation for us that when we stand together and we fight for what we know is right with love, we can see seismic shifts happen.
Thank you to both of you for coming on my show again, and I hope you heard the message. I'm going to end this show with two very good quotes I came across. Marriage is about love, not gender. It was an anonymous quote, very well said. Courage comes when an interracial couple connects to a gay couple who has been discriminated against and understand what it is all about. President Obama. Very well said again. Thank you all the best, and like I always say, life is short, have no regrets, no hate, love all.